Welcome to the Odyssey Project. Today our passage is going to be in the book of James, James chapter 2, verses 14 through 17. James being a letter, or what we would call an epistle, we're going to take a different approach to it because of its genre. And today we're going to focus on observation. As we talked about from the past, we're taking the Bible study methods approach to properly understanding the scriptures. And we know that the Bible study methods approach deal with observation. What do we see? Interpretation, what does it mean? And application, how do we live it? And observation is where you ask the critical questions, and you also answer these critical questions. What do I see? And there are four things, as I discussed before, that you should look at when asking the question. You should look at certain terms, certain structure, literary form, and we know that this is a letter, so that's the type of form of this epistle, literary form, and atmosphere. We also know that terms deal with words, but they are more than just words. Terms help you understand what the author is conveying. Things like things that are emphasized, things that are repeated, things that are related, things that are alike, unalike, that are true to life. And we know that structure deals with grammar. What is the subject of the sentence? What is the object? What is the main verb? Those things we've learned in elementary school. And there is also literary structure, which deals with the question and answers, climax and resolution, cause and effect. Literary form in the context of the Bible includes narratives, wisdom, prophecy, epistles, apocalyptic literature. And we do know that James is an epistle or a letter. So that is the type of literary form that we are looking at today. Also, atmosphere. Atmosphere involves picking up the setting and feeling of the biblical text. So those are some of the things that we look at when we observe the text. What do we see? And we always ask the question, who, what, when, where, why, and how. So let's look at James chapter 4, and we're going to focus on observation today. James chapter 4, we're going to read it a couple of times, and I'll give you some historical background information on what James is dealing with in this letter. James chapter 2, verses 14 through 17. I said James chapter 4. I'm jumping ahead of myself. James chapter 2, verses 14 through 17. Let us read. What good is it, my brethren? Some interpretations will say, what use is it? But what good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? Verse 15. If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you say to him, go in peace, be warmed and filled, without giving them things needed for the body, what good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. Let's read this again. James chapter 2, verses 14 through 17. What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you say to them, go in peace, be warmed and filled, without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. So today's segment is on observation. So I'm going to write that up here. Observation. What do we see? And we know that in observation, like I said before, we looked at the term, the structure, the literary form, and the atmosphere, things that are emphasized, things that are repeated, things that are related, alike, unalike, and that are true to life. So this is the question. Now, well, let me first give you the background. James' letter was to the 12 tribes that were scattered abroad, and you can find this in chapter 1, which were Hebrew Christians outside of Palestine. Also, during this time, there were many persecutions, so they was experiencing many problems that were testing their faith. It's interesting that we talk about our faith being tested. And this letter was written around 46 to 49 AD. Throughout the whole of this epistle, we'll see that James develops this theme of the characteristics of true faith. So right off the bat, we'll know that James is going to present us with what is not faith, true faith, and what is true faith, or what is not genuine faith and what is genuine faith. And James challenged his believers in that time to examine the quality of their faith in terms of their life instead of just words. We need to understand that, because when we talk about faith, it is not just about your words, but there is something that takes place. I mentioned this in the last segment when we looked at Matthew chapter 7. Genuine faith. This is the purpose, this is the theme, this is the idea that James is trying to bring home. Genuine faith will produce real changes in a person's conduct and character. And the absence of this change is a symptom of dead faith. Now, it's key that we understand that, because only God can change what's on the inside of a man. See, what happens is a lot of times we deal with, people say that they have faith, but there is no real change on the inside. And James is challenging his readers, those who had read this letter, to examine themselves in the areas of their conduct, their actions, their character, their integrity. These are the things that will bring revelation that God is at work in you. So let's jump right in. What good is it, my brother? Now, he starts off with asking a question. We got to see that. He starts off by asking a question. What good is it, my brethren? What good is it, or what use is it? So now we're looking at this, we say, what good is it? He's asking a question. My brothers, if someone, there go that word again, we saw this word in the last segment in the book of Matthew. If someone says, so he's asking the question, what good is it, my brothers? This is observation. If someone says he has faith, so the object of what they're saying is of faith. So he asks this question, what good is it, my brothers, if someone says, this is good, this is good. Someone says, this is someone who is declaring that they have faith. But we know that in the last segment we looked at that word but, that is a conjunction. But it is a contrast conjunction. Somebody told me not to sing, so I'm going to sing. Conjunction, junction, which your function. Those of you who are 39 and above can identify, or 38 and above can identify with Schoolhouse Rock. So, but does not. So the conjunction is a contrast, and it is followed with does not. They say that they have faith, but does not have works. So there's a contrast here. So we want to take note of that. This is observation. We see contrast. So on observation, I spelled that wrong. Boy, I tell you, my spelling is horrible. We see contrast. Let me see if I can get this. All right, there you go. Contrast. We see contrast. So James is imposing a question concerning faith. And like I said before, the whole purpose of his letter is for the believer to examine himself. So he's examining in terms of faith and action. Saying faith and living action. So what good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Now, he's going to drive this question home. And this question is in a form of want to examine or ask the critical question, and the critical question is, can that faith save him? So now we're understanding where James is going with that. He's talking about faith, but more in particular, he's talking about saving faith. He's talking about faith, but more in particular, he's talking about saving faith. This is observation. We're not going to do any interpretation. We're just observing the text. So we can put down here at the bottom, James' argument is dealing with saving faith. James' argument is dealing with saving faith. That's the first thing we observe, right? In the first verse, James' argument is dealing with saving faith. And something else we can put down here. James is questioning, is asking a question in regard of someone's faith. Now, right off the bat, we'll see that these works is not external works. But we're going to see that. Let's just keep observing. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. So the subject is faith, particularly a certain kind of faith. And James' argument is concerning a faith that produces something, because he says, what good is it? So what he's saying is, the faith that he's arguing is a faith that produces something. And that's why he says, what good is it? If someone says they have faith but does not have works. So let's put that down there. James is saying, and the Apostle James, that is, that faith produces something, in particular works. But we're gonna let's stay with something for right now, because I don't want to confuse you with those works. Not just yet, because I don't want you to think that those works he's talking about is external, because we're about to run into something and we need to clarify what these works are. So this is what we got thus far, right? Observation. Let's look at what we got. James' argument is dealing with saving faith. James is asking a question in regard to someone's faith. James is saying that faith produces something. This is what we get out of verse 1, right? Let's look at what he says. Now he jumps from asking a question, let me erase this, to telling or making a statement. Let's see what he's doing. Let's follow and see what James is doing right now. I hope you all have this down or made notes or took notes. But let's see what's going on here. We're in observation. What do I see? Right? So he immediately goes from asking a question to making a statement. If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food. So let's look at this. So basically, James presents a case where there is a need. Let's write this down here. James presents a case. Excuse me. Let me clean that up a little bit. I don't want to be too all over the place. A case where there is a need. So this is what we're looking at. James presents a case where there is a need. So this is what he's saying. If this is key, if a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking daily food, let's keep going, and one of you says. So now we got to connect this. This is what our connection is going to be. We got to connect this because he's going to show us something here. And one of those, check this out. One of those who claim to be a brother or a sister in the Lord. One of you, let's make that connection. We have to make the connections. One of you says to them, to who? Who is them? The brother or sister who has a need. That's who them is. Go in peace. Now, this is key because he's making a declaration. He says, go in peace. Now, this is the need. Basically, let's get some thoughts down. The need is presented I'm writing it like this because I'm going to erase that. The need is presented, and the need is no clothes or lacking clothes, lacking food. Now we know that if a person is lacking clothes and lacking food, there is no peace there. There is no peace. This is key. You need to understand that if someone is lacking daily food and lacking clothing, there is no peace. Now, we're not talking about the peace of God. We need to understand that because as Christians, we know that our peace in God has nothing to do with our circumstances. But that's not what James is talking about. He's talking about a different type of peace. If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you say to them, go in peace. We're talking about someone, we're not talking about the peace of God, but a peace that is lacking as a result of necessities. Now, we also have to understand this. This is not something that our wants, but he uses the word need. If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, that presents a need. And one of you say to them, go in peace. So you're declaring to them that this is observation. This is what we see. So what you're saying is that if a man or a brother or a sister is coming and saying, listen, we don't have any food, we don't have any shelter, we don't have any clothes, we're lacking in these things, and you say to them as a brother or sister, go in peace. Now you got to remember, as a whole, James' argument is saving faith, which produces a certain type of conduct and a certain type of character. So what he's saying is, if you go, he tells them to go in peace. Check this out. Be warmed and filled. I need you all to see this. Uh-oh. Do y'all get it? Do y'all see it? This is what he says to them. Be warmed. Be filled. The whole argument, we got to remember. Let me erase this. The whole argument is James is questioning the genuineness of a person's faith, but he's about to throw us a knuckleball, and we're going to see it. So let's look at number 5. There is a need presented, and the brother or sister presents the need before another brother or sister, and the person that they present the need for to them says, be warmed. They say something. But do nothing. Be warmed. But look at what they're saying. Be warmed and filled. This gives this idea that I'm declaring to you something of validity, but there is no substance behind my declaration. Let's look at that. What he's saying is, I am declaring something of validity, but my declaration has no substance. So we got to look at this. This is observation. That's why we got to properly and look at the passage and observe the text. We overlook, he says, be warmed. Now, there is a need presented, and he brings a declaration to the need that is presented. Be warmed. What he's basically saying is, I declare to you that you will be warmed. I declare to you that you will be filled. And he tells them to go in peace based on that declaration. So what he's saying is, I want you to go in peace based on a declaration that I have declared to you. And I have declared to you that you will be warmed, and I have declared to you that you will be filled. But the question is that declaration, or does that declaration have any substance? Did it provide that which is needed? And the answer is no. Am I declaring something of validity, but my declaration has no substance? Or I am declaring something of validity, but my declaration has no substance? We need to see that. Look at what he says, without giving them the things needed for the body. And then he imposes this question. And this question is key. What good is that? Observation. So this is what he's saying. This is what we see. We have to ask the critical questions and also answer the critical questions. He says, he imposes this question. Does your declaration Let's look at this. Let's write number 7. We got quite a few today, huh? Number 7. He's asking the question, does, and forgive me for not being a capital D, but I'm just writing. Does your declaration have any substance? That's what he's asking. Or more importantly, check this out. This is key. I'm going to erase some of that because we're running out of room. Does your declaration have any substance? Or more importantly, can your declaration provide what is needed? Can your declaration provide what is needed? Because he imposes this question. We're looking at observation. What good is it? Meaning, if you declare to someone something and you send them away, will that declaration provide that which is needed? Now let's keep moving because we're on observation. This is key. So he gives us an example. That's what he says. And that's what this is. And I'm going to tell you why. Because he uses a word, and all of you all should know this who have learned grammar. When you get to verse 17, he says, so also. So that lets us know that this is an example that he's making, or this is his argument. His argument is dealing with saying faith versus actual faith. So he gives this argument or an example of someone who has a need, and a person tells them or declares to them that their need is filled, but yet does not provide that which is needed. And he goes and he says, so also. So now he's driving it back home to what the whole problem is. See, the problem is not verse 16 and verse 15. That's not the problem. That is the example of what the problem is. So the problem is not so much, because a lot of people misunderstand this passage because he uses the word, and remember I said I wanted to stay away from this word right off, but he uses the word works. And so a lot of people take this as what James is meaning by works, by doing something that is external. But the problem is not external. The problem is character. The problem is internal, integrity, that which only God can regenerate, that which only God can change or transform. That's the issue. So we don't want to get all confused on external things, because you got a lot of believers out there that have poor character, that have poor integrity, that have poor conduct, but are doing many things as far as external things. And so when he uses this word so also, what he's basically saying is, I just gave you an example, a practical example where you can understand my argument. But my argument is not the example. My argument is this: so also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. Those works we cannot jump the gun on, so we're going to hold off on those works, because when we look at it, I'm breaking these passages up. When we look at verse 18 through 26, I think, we're going to see where he's going to further explain what these works are. So we're going to stop right here. This is observation. This is the Odyssey Project, James chapter 2, verses 14 through 17. We're dealing with observation. What do we see? This is the Odyssey Project. Good day now. Bye-bye.